go, Fritz.
The Bears are who we thought they were.
The Bears. The Bears.
I am the great Cornholio.
We'll see what happens.
The playoffs?
See, Sean McDonough, Jay Billis. Goats!
Can you play a song? Something cool. Put my mic on!
I'm calling both games.
Oh, baby!
Are you serious?
Goes down the field for Smith.
Oh, he got it!
Seattle. We're getting ready
Let's
for
get right
Cincinnati.
into it. Monday Night Thriller in Vegas. So, if you know me, I'm not a roller coaster guy, right? I don't, when I go to Hershey Park or Disney World or whatever, I don't go on the roller coasters. Excuse me. I don't go to the biggest roller coaster and say, let's go on it. I don't try to find the super duper looper and try to figure out when the line will be the lowest. That's not how I roll. The what's the ride at Hershey Park called? The granny bugs. that's more my speed. And most of the games on Sunday, not most of them, but quite a few of them were granny bug games, right? But Monday night was super duper looper. It was about, and being a Ravens fan, it was even more so. It felt like that even more so. Being on a big roller coaster, that game made it feel like I was on the super duper looper. And if you didn't watch the game, you should go look at the highlights, because it was one of those games. Sorry, I just gotta move something around here. It was one of those games that you never felt like any one team had control or any one team was out of it. There was never a point where you said, "Oh man, the Ravens have this locked up." There was about 4 or 5 points in the game where you said, if the Ravens score on this drive, they might have it locked up. But there was never any point in time in the game where you said this game's over, right? It was, 17-10. And the Ravens had the ball, and that was one opportunity. They had to close it. They had to shut the door. But they had like 3 or 4 or more opportunities where they could have shut the door, but they just couldn't get the job done. Whether it was not being able to execute on third down, Lamar Jackson fumbling, the pocket collapsing and he gets sacked, just a number of things. It was never any one thing. It was just, it was a combination of things that led to the Ravens not being able to finish the game off in regulation. And in the first half, it kind of looked like a slop fest. Neither quarterback was super sharp in the first half. Derek Carr looked really off target. His receivers didn't seem to be doing him any favors, though. And Lamar Jackson, same thing. He didn't look so good, and I'll get to that in a minute. But the Raiders' running game wasn't strong. I know Josh Jacobs has got a little bit of an injury issue, that he's been dealing with. And like I said, the Raiders' receivers were off their game. There were multiple times where whether it was Darren Waller or was it Henry Ruggs, I think was the other guy. You're going to have to bear with me. I always get Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy mixed up, but I know Judy's on the Broncos. I don't know why I get those two mixed up, but I do. So the receivers just, it looked like they weren't giving a full effort. And there were many times where they would throw it to Darren Waller, and Waller just kind of tipped it up in the air, and it fell out of his reach. But it just didn't seem like he was, really going for the ball sometimes, and it was just odd. It just didn't seem like the receivers for Vegas were giving it 100% effort. Overall thoughts on the Ravens, though. Jackson didn't throw to Mark Andrews. I don't know if he did at all. I think he maybe did once or twice, but if you've watched the Ravens over the past few years, you know that Jackson to Mark Andrews is the Ravens' bread and butter other than running, right? In the pass game, Mark Andrews is their bread and butter. So I was really shocked at Mark Andrews being kind of almost ignored in some points of the game. And it wasn't so much that Andrews wasn't open. I mean, there were multiple times where Jackson either got sacked or he got rushed out of the pocket and he had to run, or he threw it to somebody else and it was incomplete or just a bad decision. And they show the replay, and Mark Andrews is right there in the middle of the field, wide open. And that was concerning because if you can't find the guy that you've gone to so many times in the previous few seasons, if you can't find that guy wide open in the middle of the field, that's a little concerning for a few obvious reasons. The Ravens running game was much stronger than I expected. We knew going into the game that Le'Veon Bell and Devontae Freeman were not going to be active. Freeman, it was kind of a question, nobody really knew for certain whether he would or would not be active, but I thought he was going to be until I saw that they had that running back Cannon on their roster. So then it made more sense that they didn't have him. But we both know that, or everybody knew that Bell and Freeman were most likely not going to be in the game, and that Latavius Murray was only going to be getting a limited number of touches. With that being said, the starter was the guy who was going to have to fight out for that third position, Tyson Williams. He was a guy going into the, ending the preseason. He was going to be like the fourth, or going into the preseason, I should say. He was going to be the fourth string running back, and he was going to have to beat out Justice Hill to stay on the 53-man roster. And then, we all know the story. We don't know what happened from there. But Tyson Williams was much better than I thought. Tyson Williams looked way sharper than I think anybody really expected. But that was in the first half. In the second half, he kind of disappeared a little bit. And I don't mean that in the aspect that the Raiders' defense shut them down. What I mean is he kind of disappeared from the Ravens' playbook. He disappeared from their offense. And I was really confused by that because he was showing he was pretty sharp in the first half, and it just doesn't make any sense to go away from what was working for you in the second half when you're winning. I understand if you're losing and you're like, okay, we got to change it up, but they were up at halftime. Williams was strong, and they just go away from it, which was really confusing. I didn't understand that. The Ravens' offensive line, what a disgrace. That was terrible. That was really bad. I after the game, I really didn't know what to say. I just couldn't believe it. I mean, I feel like partially the reason why Jackson couldn't find his open receivers was because he had the cavalry coming for him half the time. Jackson was he probably had more rushing yards behind the line of scrimmage than he did after it. Ravens pick up that guy Villanueva, and it was supposed to be a good signing, and people thought that Pittsburgh was dumb for letting him go, but now I know why the Steelers let him go. He didn't look sharp. He didn't look good at all. And I think it was the day after, I was talking to my dad about the game, and he had a really good what's that called? Metaphor, I guess. Or no, I guess it's a simile because he used like or as, right? No, but he goes, man, that guy Villanueva was a revolving door. It was just, oh, you're coming in, come right in. And he's right. And I didn't think of it that. I knew he was weird. I knew he was off. I knew he wasn't good. But he really put that into perspective as to how bad he really was. I mean, it was bad. And it wasn't just him. It was a lot of other guys as well. And now they're saying that Ronnie Stanley is going to be out for the Chiefs game. So I think it's going to be another similar game for the Ravens on Sunday night. And everybody knows that the Chiefs have been the Ravens' kryptonite over the past few years since Jackson's been the guy in Baltimore. And to have to be without your best offensive lineman, Ronnie Stanley, that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough. And, I think in the offseason when the Ravens let go of Orlando Brown Jr., people were saying, you know what, hey, we're going to be all right. The Ravens are going to be okay. There's nothing to worry about. They're going to be fine. They've got they've drafted some guys. They've got, Villanueva. They've got signings. We're going to be fine. And, I mean, I know that it was only the first game, but I don't know. I'm not feeling too good if I'm a Ravens fan after that game, because the Raiders are a team that they're good, right? They've been meh over the past few years. Like they're a team that they're going to get 8 or 9 wins in the season, but the Raiders are not a team that you look at and say that's a Super Bowl contending team. And for their defensive linemen to just bulldoze their way through the Ravens O-line is concerning. Is really concerning because they're going, and the Raiders' defensive line looked really good, but you can take that two ways. You can take that as that they were really good, or the Ravens' offensive line was really bad, or a little bit of both. And I think it was a little bit of both. But you can always, there's always a thing where, we can be better. And it just didn't look very good. And I think that's going to be an issue. That's going to be an issue for the Ravens all year long. Can their offensive line keep Lamar clean in the pocket? And I don't know. After the Raiders game, I wouldn't be so confident. The Ravens' young guys in the secondary, I thought they showed some promise. As I was talking about that last week, I believe, with all the injuries and how the young guys are going to have to step up. They're rookie or second year guys, so they're young, and I don't expect them to come out and look like a Hall of Famer in the first game. And I thought they looked about as good as I could have hoped for their first game against some talented guys, right? If they came out and played the Falcons or whatever, and they played like that, I'd be like, okay, but let's see how they do against real competition. That was some talented guys, right? Darren Waller, Derek Carr, and Ruggs are no slouch, right? That's nothing to sneeze at. So, I think Westry and Stevens were the two young guys on their in their secondary, and they showed some promise to me. There was a couple of times where either one of them had like a dropped interception, and if as a Ravens fan, I understand that's frustrating. Like, oh, come on, you got to get that. But don't give them some time. That's an interception that they're going to make maybe later this year or next year. That's an intercept. That's a play that they're going to make in the future. And if they're getting burned and they're getting toasted on every play, then I might not be so optimistic. But if they are in their first game, right, or whatever, maybe it's their second or third game, whatever. They're making that play, like they're just that close to making that play already. That to me, you can only go up from there, right? I know that guys do get worse over time sometimes, but I think with Wink Martindale and their defensive coaches who have been really good over the past few years, I think sky's the limit for those guys. So I think be patient with them. But one thing that they're going to have to stop, the Ravens are going to have to stop on defense is the dumb penalties, right? Patrick Queen pretty much clotheslines the guy, gets flagged for it, and stands up like, oh, I didn't do anything. Like, stop. Shut up. You did. You know exactly what you did. Don't act like you didn't do anything. But Patrick Queen, he had some good plays, but gotta play with your head. Gotta be smarter than that. And Tavon Young is another guy that gets on my nerves. He's the new Marcus Peters for me, but not so much because I didn't like Tavon Young from the get-go. He's always the guy. I call it the Eric Weddle effect. When there's a big play and you look at who's trailing behind, it's Tavon Young, right? And it was Eric Weddle in the past, but now it's Tavon Young, and it was even a few years ago when he was playing on the Ravens. And Young had a few other dumb penalties as well. So it's just. He's just one of those guys that gets my nerves. But the Raiders, on the other hand, let's go to them. As I said, the Raiders, Derek Carr rather, he looked off target in the first half. Actually, in regulation, really, and even a bit in overtime too. He wasn't super strong. I mean, he had the interception in the end zone, red zone, which was a huge turning point almost, and then the defense stopped them. But the running game, as I said, wasn't very strong. The D-line had a good game. Max Crosby is a guy who's going to be giving people nightmares all year long. And as I said earlier, there was no point where you felt like they were out of the game, the Raiders. You never felt like, oh man, they're done. Right, and even when they had the interception in overtime, you never thought that was it, because their defense had been making plays all game long, and it's like, okay, they still have a chance here. Their defense can do this, and so they kept fighting. I got to give them credit for that. Ravens really played well in the first half, and like I said, they just kept fighting, and I really got to commend their efforts on that. And I think that's a theme we're going to see from the Raiders all season long, because that division is going to be tough this year, right? I think every team in their division, week 1 won their game. I think Chiefs beat the Browns, Raiders obviously won, Chargers beat Washington, and the Broncos beat the Giants. So yeah, every team, and I'm not saying that the Broncos are necessarily going to be division contenders, right? But it's going to be a tight race between the Raiders and the Chargers. Obviously the Chiefs are the front runner, but that division is going to be very competitive. And I know I said that the AFC North might be the toughest division in the AFC this year, but I think only 2 teams really won their games. So maybe I was wrong about that. But yeah, I mean, the Raiders are a team that they've got that dirty, gritty, keep fighting attitude. And that's what you get with John Gruden or Chucky or Chunky because he's fat. That's the kind of attitude you're going to get every game. You're never going to get a team that lays down after they're down by 2 possessions. They're a team that is going to give you a good, hard fight for 60 minutes, no matter what the score is, right? So, and that effort pays off, and we saw that on Monday night.